So
we're going. There we go. God, this thing's really slow today.
oh
Well, hello everybody.
It's StreamYards. I'm pressing buttons. Oh, I hate you, StreamYards. Oh my God, you cannot be serious.
Well, hello. Testing. Check
The
one.
intro wouldn't play.
I
okay.
saw it. It ran for like
It started.
20 seconds. It ran for like 20 seconds.
Damn, StreamYards. Well,
Are we still
this has
live?
been a fun day.
Yeah, we're live.
We've been live for 1 minute.
Hi,
I'm
everybody.
on.
I wanted to officially apologize for the Global Geek Gang because we were just having an awesome time behind the scenes, geeking out and talking about some great comic books. So,
Yeah.
Look, I guess it's April 1st.
April Fool's Day.
Thank you,
Oh, I
StreamYards.
forgot that. Yo, they played us.
Well, everyone, if I look at this point, I don't even know if we're on, but we'll just pretend that we are about that. And if we're not, hey, I'm having fun anyway. And brightest day and blackest night, we shall escape our sight. Beware our power. I skipped the part.
Lanterns might.
The Global Geek Gang's light is what I was going to say, buddy, but that's okay. It's that kind of day, man. I can't even get the StreamYards up working. And I wasn't even This is friggin' StreamYards' fault. Welcome everyone out there to the most disorganized show on YouTube.
Besides ours too. So it's Mike and ours are the most disabled shows. So
Oh my God, Robert, I promise this thing usually works, buddy.
Oh no, it's fine. I was getting all these notifications. I'm being roasted on Twitter for my April Fool's tweet.
What?
What was it? I didn't go see it.
What was
'cause
that?
I woke up.
I wrote this. This is what I wrote on Twitter. I said, "This morning's seismic Lucasfilm Kathleen Kennedy announcement will have ramifications for years to come. Remaking the sequel trilogy, directed by Spielberg, Fincher, and Cameron, is amazing enough, but bringing Hamill and Ford back to star, I'm gobsmacked. It's stunning." That was my tweet. Boy, people aren't happy.
Wait, that's not true? I thought that was true. What's that?
I think the whole I used to do. I hadn't done that, and I used to make these really industry sounding like it was usually about me. Like I would like to announce I'm directing this. Like one year I did. I'm doing a remake of Life Force, and I made it sound really convincing. And I got like hundreds of congratulatory emails or things on Facebook comments. And I'm like, come on, how can you believe? But I did it. Try to do it convincingly by using the proper language, and that's what I thought I would do here because I hadn't done it in a while. And I was like, oh, I have an idea.
Are you getting Matilda May back? Is she coming back?
Oh, of course, and she's going to be wearing nothing.
She might be a little old for it, but hey, why not?
She looks pretty good. I worked on the Life Force, the Scream Factory Life Force Blu-ray that they put out, and I didn't do the interview, but she's interviewed on the disc, and she looks great.
That's one of my favorite movies of all time. Just for that, her walking around naked the whole movie. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I mean, talking about
Halo Rising in here.
Oh,
Even
Jake D would give me
vampires
the
have the male
divorce
gaze.
achievement if he was.
Yeah, I know, right?
Shout out to Jake D.
Shout out to Jake D.
D.
Welcome everyone.
Hello.
I think hello there, chat. By the way, Raymond, I sent you the wrong link because it's that kind of day, but you have the link now, buddy. Welcome everyone. We were all through the rings last week, didn't we? We could do it again though.
Yeah,
we can recap.
we did.
I guess we're having a Green Lantern panel again. I thought we covered it all last week, but everyone said we gotta do it as part 2. So far be it from me to turn down Ash because I know Ash really wanted to do another one, right, Ash?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know, right?
Awesome. Ash got
All week in my ear. All week in my ear.
I mean,
we're gonna do it again. We're gonna do it again.
I can spend another hour talking about the Green Lantern film if you guys want. I know Clobby loves that film. So
I'm an apologist, man. I love it too.
I was actually
yeah.
watching it
God,
this
that movie
morning.
sucks. You watched it this morning?
I did watch it this morning because I've not watched it since I saw it opening night theatrically back in July 2011 because it came out right around the time the first Captain America did. So I was like, okay, you know what? There's a DC movie coming out. It's not Batman or Superman. I want to check it out. And then, you know, of course, I checked out, and I, at the time, truly, truly hated it. I mean, I don't have as strong feelings now. I'm not necessarily in love with it now, but I do appreciate seeing Hal Jordan actually be a hero. Obviously, you know, we don't have that as much anywhere as we used to with movies nowadays. It's about the lesson. But it is nice to see Hal being a hero. And of course, they were trying to set up, you know, stuff with Sinestro, and we saw Hector Hammond, where their characters go, okay, they're trying to open the doors for all these things. Cool. And I love Michael Clark Duncan as Kilowog. He's a great Kilowog voice. Whether you like the movie or not, he's got a great voice for the character. I'm like, oh, that's a perfect fit. I could do with a little. I wish they had actual suits though, because it could look like leopard print, but for lantern suits. So I was like, yeah, those suits.
Well, welcome everyone in the chat. No, I hear look that movie. I'm just gonna let the people who like it say what they want. I'm not even gonna go there anymore. Everyone,
Go for it.
What a disappointment it is, but there are good things in it, I guess.
There's a remake of The Cutting Edge with D.B. Sweeney. It has that same opening. Waking up next to a hot girl. You're late for the game. I mean, your test flight because the alarm went off, and you're plucky.
Well, Ash made such a good case for it, Robert, last week that Eric went and bought it at the Walmart $2 bin, no doubt.
Did you guys see the conversation we had last night on Twitter between me, Ash, and him? It was.
So, you know, Robert, you said you're a fan of the film. What you know? Tell us about what you like. What are your thoughts on it? Because I've never heard.
I like the portrayal of Oa. You know, and I think
Yes.
I think the real problem with that movie is it's incredibly schizophrenic, in that all the stuff with Hector Hammond, all that is just absurd. And you know, using the ring to create a Hot Wheels like Rube Goldberg contraption, and I think you know, the movie I think really suffers from the fact that when even in the 90s people believed that comic books were somehow source material that was for kids. They didn't take it seriously yet. And even after Tim Burton's Batman and after Superman the movie, and even other one-offs like the Alex Proyas's adaptation of The Crow from '94 that I really like. I think it's one of my favorite comic book adaptations. But they still didn't understand that the people that read comics, they don't think, oh, I'm just reading a comic book. They're reading stories that they're very much into. I know because I'm a comic book reader for my whole life. And when I would read, especially in the 80s, you know, beginning with the Baxter paper and the direct sale market and everything, and you got things like Ronin, which led to a lot of, you know, books like American Flag from Howard Chaykin. I was reading some really heady stuff in comic form, but the general consensus hadn't caught up to that. And I think what was so interesting about Green Lantern, where it was torpedoed, is it's half a good adaptation of Green Lantern and then half this hot garbage that they tried to make it like a comic book movie. And all the stuff with the villain and everything, if they had played that movie straight, if the tone was more Top Gun all the way through, as opposed to, you know, if it was Top Gun meets Star Wars.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Wow.
You know, I think true right there.
Yeah, it would have been, but they just didn't know. And a guy like Martin Campbell, I mean, the man that rebooted Bond twice with GoldenEye and Casino Royale, he was a perfect director for it. But it was the script and it was the tone and it was the approach, and it should have been a movie that was always cool. But when you have a character like they're like, I know we have to have this character have some human quality, and Parallax and the way it was portrayed, it was just it was not good. And so you've got on one hand, I think Ryan Reynolds, even though I would have toned down his jokiness, I thought he could have been a great Hal Jordan if he played it lean more into the sort of Maverick aspects of his career, the fact that he's a test pilot. But there's a lot in that movie that, so when I watch it, it's kind of like when you have a great meal and half of the stuff on your plate when you're a kid is great, and then there's lots of vegetables. So you like, you know, you have the spaghetti or you have the steak or whatever it is, and then you have to eat like broccoli. And you're like, oh man. So I kind of feel like watching the Green Lantern movie. Like I like watching. I skip through it now. So I like the stuff, like all the stuff on Oa and seeing the Guardians and seeing the Green Lantern Corps, and I love all of that. And I'm like, yes, why don't let's
Mark Strong was great. Yeah.
He was great.
Yes, he was.
I mean, he was great, and all the seeing the like Kilowog and seeing him being trained and all that. I loved all that, and I'm like, why do I have to deal with this? It's kind of like Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm like, I love Jamie Foxx, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what movie are you in? Why am I watching this character? And so
that wasn't Electro, by the way.
No,
that was an awful
Jamie
movie.
Foxx.
Yeah, I mean,
awful movie.
And I'm like, how do you not know? You know, you have to. One of the reasons I think it's interesting because you go back and you watch Bryan Singer's the first X-Men movie, which is an imperfect film. But what's interesting is you can pull off the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. You're never laughing at them. Even when someone's cracking a bad joke, it's still because you have Ian McKellen grounding everyone. So Toad and Sabretooth, which could have been ridiculous if it wasn't handled well. The tone is consistent throughout the movie, so it works. And they carry that tone into X-Men 2. And I think that was the key, is that so often you have to pick a tone when you're going with a comic book adaptation and stick with that tone. Raimi's Spider-Man 2, for instance, you know, he picks a certain tone and he carries it through the whole film, whereas the tone was sort of unbalanced in Spider-Man 3. But that's what people want, is they want a consistency of tone. And I think one of the things that Marvel does really well, the MCU, is that they have a very buoyant tone. Sometimes it works better than others, but you know, when you I think when I watch Infinity War and Endgame, for instance, for all of there might be plot problems, I watch those movies with a big smile on my face because I'm like, this is exactly why I was reading Marvel comics when I was 12.
But to add to that point too, each tone is different for each franchise. So you have the Captain America movies, that's a different tone than the Iron Man movies, which is a different tone from the Avengers movies, and then that's a completely different tone from Thor, especially in the last movie, and then it's a completely different tone than Guardians. Yeah, exactly, the Flavor Flavs.
It's really, and then when they bring these characters together, combining, like I always thought to myself, how are they going to make Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man, as he's depicted in the first Iron Man, be in a movie together? And am I going to buy this? This was the question that I had in 2008. And then after you see Captain America, the first Avenger, you're like, this could work. And I remember sitting in the theater watching the first Avengers, and I'm like, I was sitting there in stunned disbelief because I'm like, I can't believe they have pulled this off. I can't believe I can watch a movie where Thor and Hulk are standing next to each other after defeating a villain, and Thor gets punched by the Hulk just as a joke, and you see him, and I'm like, this still works. This does not break the tone. I can laugh my ass off because that was funny when Hulk did that, and yet it all holds together, and that is a really hard thing to do.
And do you think that's where they failed in the DC universe? I think that because you look at the individual movies and their tone, the only one that really kind of wasn't bad was Wonder Woman, but I still have a lot of problems with it. But a Green Lantern, the tone was way off. I think they went more with kind of a Guy Gardner tone in a Hal Jordan movie, which failed.
That's what I said last week.
Yeah, it should have been Kick-Ass. It should have been Top Gun meets Star Wars.
Exactly.
You know, or Starship Troopers or something. Well, maybe not Starship Troopers, but I love Starship Troopers. But
that's a guilty pleasure, Starship Troopers.
I mean, but you know, the movie should have been really cool, for lack of a better term. And the problem is the villains are not cool, and they're like Parallax, and then the whole Hector Hammond thing is just, it's out of a slapstick. It's almost like suddenly he becomes the villain in Howard the Duck. You know,
and I think they tried to push. I think they tried to push like a trilogy into one movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I mean, when you look at those things, like what is the tone that you're going for? And I think that especially during the Jeff Johns era of, like, I really liked the Jeff Johns era of Green Lantern. You know, even stuff like Blackest Night, I'm like, okay.
It
I did-
reinvigorated the franchise because Green Lantern was kind of dying at that point,
Especially
Yeah.
Hell.
Yeah.
and that got
Rebirth-
hugely popular.
Yeah,
I
Rebirth
loved
brought me
it
back.
too.
Rebirth brought me back to comics after hating DC for
Well, they
12
brought
years.
Hal
But they
back.
did.
Yeah,
They brought Hal. They fixed Hal. They fixed
They
a
fixed
mistake by bringing Hal back and corrected, bringing the core back and all that stuff, and changing that idiocy with him being the Spectre and all that parallax garbage. I owe that to Johns. He brought me back to DC after really being disgusted with him for many years. And
Yeah.
for a while there, they were pretty good.
And it was
They made
like
it law
grand space
enforcement
opera.
yeah, exactly. They made it law enforcement in space again. They made it like we're space cops. That's what we are, and we're all around the universe here. We're 3,600 sectors. We have to cover that, you know, with 7,200 lanterns. I actually like that new modern version where they have the senior guy and the junior guy. So you can do a lot of buddy cop stuff, and you could have done that kind of with the movie too, where you how's the junior guy, Sinestro's the senior guy, buddy cop them. Like
Well, I agree.
that training montage with Kilowog and stuff, yeah, that's really cool. And he learns his ring, but man, you give him to Sinestro, they go out there, they try to deal with Parallax, if that's what you're going to go with. But yet they made it this kind of comedic, silly movie that just didn't work.
No, that's it. The tone destroyed the film, and you know, it's other things like even the way they did the costume. Like, I liked the way it looked, but the execution. You know, we've seen now, especially with how Marvel does their costumes, they look great on camera, and they're redolent of the comic books. They keep those classic comic designs, and yet, you know, they're still, you have to make them work in the real world.
They made him look
that's
like
why-
a video game character. It was like a video game character.
It was, and even the colors, as much as I say I like the OA stuff, even that, the approach is very, the design work is very, it's kind of goofy too, in a way, and it
It's
would have been
out there science fiction. Like that's not the darker science fiction or the stuff that we're used to.
no,
From
it's like a
classic science
sci-fi
fiction.
album cover from the 70s. Or
Yeah.
something, you know?
A CP top cover or something.
The Roger Dean cover, maybe. No.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, you know, on that, you're talking about that, you know, with Rebirth and that John's run after that, you know, Rebirth, John's run and Tomasi's run with Green Lantern Corps, those
Yep.
two series in
So
conjunction
good.
for years were really good.
Yeah.
And even we talked last week a little bit about what I actually really enjoyed Sinestro Corps War, but then they started the events at, you know, Blackest Night and then Brightest Day. That stuff really started the event. They were eventing me out of comics.
I mean, I read Blackest Night because, you know, I'm a George Romero fan and zombies, but it was so, it was so, I mean, I liked it as kind of like, I'll go put on a Iron Maiden record and pretend I'm 14 again or something, but I liked it from that perspective.
I'm
you know?
still doing that.
I like
Yeah,
the
I like-
chapters.
Yeah.
So they set it up though too. They took a couple of years. They set it up. They plotted it out. They
Yeah.
made a plan, and then Blackest Night happened. As a Egyptian god of the dead, I can appreciate Blackest Night because I love having that introduced where you bring back all those dead characters. I mean, there were some classic Green Lantern Corps issues back in the old days where, you know, Hal Jordan defeats Necron. He goes into the land of the dead. All those old dead Green Lanterns, they help him. I think somebody mentioned it last week too, and that was a great story. But I'm going to say something controversial. I think that the Johns run, all the more those middle, you know, the Blackest Night and Brightest Day kind of run there, that run is probably the greatest storyline of the Green Lantern Corps ever. And that includes a lot of the older issues, the Silver Age stuff, because it was a run. It wasn't just a great issue, because you had Hard Traveling Heroes, you had Green Lantern, Green Arrow. Those are some amazing stories. But this was just universally apocalyptic. And that made them come to the fore in the DC universe and made them, like, the stuff that they've been doing recently, especially in the Justice League comics, has just been awful. This whole resetting of the Anti-Monitor and the Monitor weren't the big bads, and there was a whole anyway, that it's such an awful run of the Justice League. And I think that that the Brightest Day, the Blackest Night stuff was probably the best crossover story within the DC universe this side of Crisis.
I would have to
Wow,
agree with
dude.
him a little bit on that one.
I don't know,
Yeah, I
man.
mean, I enjoyed it.
Well,
I've
you're
got,
peak there.
Sinestro Core War was the last one that I really kind of enjoyed. After that, Brightest, I bought every damn crossover of Blackest Night for some reason, and that was a lot. Didn't it seem like it went on for a year?
you did
Yeah.
like it was forever.
Did
Has anybody
God,
looked at the
man.
latest one?
Brightest Day
Godhead?
was horrible. I didn't.
What's that, Raymond?
Has anybody looked at the latest Green Lantern crossover called Godhead, where they tackle the new gods? I just bought it the weekend ago.
You bought a new comic? What's wrong with you?
Right?
It's not very good. I don't
What's
think
the
the
It had
storyline
Green
was very good.
Lantern. It had
Yeah.
Green Lantern.
I don't
It
think
had
the
new
storyline
gods.
was very good, Ray.
Oh, you
No,
did?
it wasn't.
Yeah,
I
thought
looked
it was
at it
very
too.
much, very much
I
a
hated the
recent
artwork.
modern take.
Hated the art.
Yeah, the artwork's awful.
I don't know what.
See the stuff that's going on that we're seeing, that was already done about a year or so ago. The stuff they're putting out right now, it's already been in and they're just pushing it out. So
Mhm.
You know, I
that's
used
what
to.
sorry, Robert, I didn't mean to cut
Oh
you
no, I
off.
didn't mean to cut you. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say I stopped buying monthly books, but I buy the omnibuses or the hardcovers. I don't think there's been anything in the last 2 years. The last thing I was interested in was Frank Miller's Batman: The Master Race. That was it. There's been nothing that's come out since. I mean, I bought other things that aren't DC or Marvel, like the Wicked and the Divine or stuff like that. And,
Oh, Kieran Gillen. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
that
I'm
is
at the first
great. I
trade of
love that.
That's a great
Yep.
book.
I have
Yeah,
all the floppies of that. That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, there's four. I think there's four hard. I'm looking over four
Yeah, because I think
hardcovers.
they got up to issue 50 around
Yeah,
there.
I thought it was like 44, 45.
Yeah, it's something like that. Then they had a bunch of specials.
Yeah, and that I've really enjoyed. Things like that. I used to do Collider Heroes with Amy Dallin. She hooked me up on that. I'm like, I love that book. And there's been a lot of stuff like that, but for the most part, I don't know if I'll ever go read a new collection of superhero comics.
Yeah, I still
Oh.
have my pull list, but I've dropped a lot of the traditional ones that I got. I don't get Flash anymore. I don't get a lot of the Superman titles. I don't get. We're just talking DC, let alone Marvel. Batman, I've gotten from about 90 to about 106, and then I dropped it because it's not very good. Yeah, there's a lot of problems I think with modern comics. It's just the writing is not very good, and the art is just awful most of the time.
Well, that's the thing. I was going back and prep for this show. I was looking back. I was telling you about the Baxter paper, the Green Lantern, Green Arrow run from the 70s that Neil Adams drew, and going back and looking at that stuff. And I'm like, this is great. These comics are great. Like, what the hell? Denny O'Neil and come on.
You
This
just
stuff is-
dropped the name drop Neil
R.I.P.
Adams too, one of the greatest of all times.
Yeah, and
It's,
I mean, it was. You look at this stuff and you're like, this is Neil Adams was a true artist. Like these guys studied art, they understood anatomy,
And in the traditional way, not this digital on your computer crap.
no, they
No.
drew with the pencils.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
I know, and I miss that. I miss that.
It is so obvious too. You can see the difference in the classic art of comic books back in the 80s and 90s. You're talking Baxter, great run of Legion of Superheroes there. Shout out to the Legion. Long live the
Long
Legion.
live the Legion.
Yeah, I just picked up
Oh,
the
look at that.
5 years later. I love, even though no one liked
Yeah, I
it, because
hated
Keith
that.
Giffen.
I hated it.
I
You like that?
loved the first 8 issues of that when time kept getting the Time Trapper was destroying time and rebooting the universe. I thought it was great.
Didn't they turn Rock Kryn into the Time Trapper though?
Yeah, they
Well,
did. Cosmic
Yeah,
Man.
they did.
Damn them.
It wasn't that
yeah.
great.
But,
Superboy
Big
Prime
easy.
and Time Trapper was the best.
look at that Legion ring on Ed though. Eric.
Show it,
Ed,
Eric.
I call you Ed all the time.
No.
I'm changing your name to Ed. Long live the Legion, man. We're gonna Thoth, I promise.
Ed
Legion
O'Sullivan.
show again. Thoth,
Yes,
I
we gotta
promise,
do
we're
that
doing a
Legion show, brother.
again soon.
Yep.
I don't know if you're much of a, R&B. A lot of people get called weirdos if they love the Legion. It's like a very small little subset now of fans of Legion. We're getting a complex. No one really. So I'm glad.
No,
some-
like, again, those
Still get
like
love.
the Paul was it Paul Levitz who
Yep.
wrote a lot
Paul
of that?
Levitz,
He wrote.
Yeah.
his era was the best in my opinion.
Yeah, I
That was a
really
great
liked
era.
that. And it's funny when they Legion and Titans went over to Baxter Paper, they became direct sale books.
Love it.
And that was when I really started getting back into comic books and started going every week. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy superhero comics. And then for whatever reason, I read that Baxter issue of Legion, that first issue. I think it has like a blue and silver cover or something. And I'm like, I love this. And then I totally became immersed in Legion lore. And it was again, just a great time this is like from 82 to I don't know 90, and then there was the
89,
Legionnaires, and
that first issue of the Baxter Legion was the one where they're bursting out of the cover. It's blue and silver and yellow background, and you got Dawnstar and Block, and I think Colossal Boy is there, and Monel, and that is an awesome cover.
That's the start of the sad but tragic but good story arc of the death of Karate Kid, Val Armour, which
great story.
I loved. I loved him. I loved Val Armour.
As a short little callback to since we're talking about Green Lantern Corps, Legion of Superheroes, Ron Vidar was also a Green Lantern in the future, the last.
Well,
and then Sodom. There was a whole bunch of other stories, but Ron Vidar was a Legion or was a Green Lantern in that time. That was kind of a cool story arc too.
Well, yes, because before that, it had been established in Legion North that Earth would not allow Green Lanterns anymore.
Yeah, it was United. It was the whole the United Planets didn't allow Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's funny. We're old. These are 40 years ago. Let me tell you about the comics I was buying 40 years ago.
But it's not the golden age of comics, but to me, it is the golden age of comics.
Yes, I love Bronze Age. I'm a Bronze Age baby.
Yep.
Yeah, me too. I mean, but that was the thing. Going to the comic, it's hard to explain to people. Going to the comic book stores, like same with music. I would go to Tower Records and I would go to the comic book store, and you never knew what was going to come out every week. There was no diamond catalog that you could look through and you just look at the racks and like I going to my comic book stores. I'm like, man, this is cool. I would buy stuff sight unseen. That was when like Pacific Comics existed and First Comics was putting out weird shit like Mars or something. And I'm like, what is this? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to buy it. And it was a lot of fun.
For me, it was the blind buy. You did the blind buy. You saw the cover. You're like, this looks badass. I'm going to check it out. And hopefully, when it stuck the landing, it made that whole decision that much greater. Like, yes, I saw this and now I know what it was. And now I get to tell the world to buy it. It's such a awesome, powerful feeling.
I over-ordered on a lot of it. I over-ordered on a lot of it, and then under-ordered on a lot of it. You never knew. Like Ronin, I got stuck with 100-something copies. And
did you own a comic store? Clobberin times?
Here we go. I ran a few and owned one. I cannot get away from getting picked. It's all Gary's fault.
Well, Eric's not here. I have to pick up the slack for Eric K.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, man. I can always.
Ronin. I can understand that because at the time Ronin was kind of this weird, impenetrable. Ooh, it's Frank Miller. I'm going to buy this. I loved it because I love anything to do with samurais. But even then, I'm reading this, going, "What's going on?" I mean, I loved it, but I'm like, I don't quite get it. But
it was a weird comic. R&B. Read the last Ronin from Ninja Turtles. That's a samurai-based story coming out.
Oh, is it good?
It's by Kevin Eastman, of course. It's actually good, and they're big, fat, they're like these $9 thick books. They're coming out monthly, and I know number 3 is coming out in May. But if you just want to wait for a trade, at least keep it in mind because it is Ninja Turtles. It's basically the Dark Knight Returns. It's even got some Frank Miller art, but Ninja Turtleized. It's really entertaining, and it's
all right.
Lots of action too.
Yeah, I mean, I'd read that. Why not?
I think what's really missing in the comic book industry today is that story that you just told, R&B and CLOBBY and myself. It was the convenience store back in the 70s, and I would go, and that's what's not happening today. You have these specialty shops are the only place you can get comic books. I mean, really, and I think that the mass audience out there just doesn't realize what it is to collect comics. They're exposed to what the movies are, and
Yeah.
that's why we have that two parts of the fandom, whereby you have the diehard fans who collect the comic books and have for decades, and you've got the new fans who just know the movies, and that's part of the problem, I think, too, whereby we really miss that part. I used to go and with my dad or my grandfather, and that would be it. He'd say, okay, go, you can get 2 comics, and they'd be like 10 cents, 12 cents, 15 cents. And so I could get a couple, and then my dad would head over to the adult section, the adult magazine section, and I'd get to go to the comic books. And so that would distract me I could stay in there for a long time because they had the spinner racks. Oh, shout out to those old spinner racks. Gary has one. If you watch that rack run in the background, there's a couple of other guys.
Do you know how much those spinner racks are going for now?
$300.
I know. They're 300 to 500. Yeah.
But they're the classic representation of the old spinner racks, and that was the fun. And I think part of the fun of collecting comics was just going to the store and going, but I have to choose. I can only get 2, and then you'd kind of sneak back after doing your paper route, and you'd have your money, and you'd be able to get 1 or 2 more. And that's what I think is missing in the comic industry today. It's that sense of wonder every Wednesday, dropping in and going, what's new today?
Yeah. Also, I think, and I see this all the time. I mean, the advancement of technology, I think a lot of people are like, when you have video games that have photorealistic representations of these characters, and you can actually do battle, whether it's a game like Injustice or whether you're a Marvel game on your phone that looks great, where you've got battling superheroes. I think it's hard to go back. Like, we didn't have anything like that in the 70s. And even in the early 80s, we had the Atari 2600 was certainly not going to recreate the experience of reading a comic through its art, you know. And now you look at the quality of video games like Ghost of Tsushima, and you look at, my God, this is unbelievable. And if you have a video game that's so involving with a storyline, like whether it's Last of Us or any of that kind of thing, how do you get people that have that technology, kids, to go back and read a comic book and find value in it? And unfortunately, it's the world we live in. We're never going to go back to that world because there's too many other things that are technologically advanced that unfortunately have captured the imagination of kids.
And digital comics don't work. Like, it just doesn't work.
No, and then the same thing is true. Like, you know, I still build plastic spaceship models. Like, I love, Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever. I love. And they make the best models. You can get better models of like the Starship Enterprise than you ever could before. But kids aren't building them. Like, I incessantly built models of the Enterprise. I had to have all 12 Constitution class ships when they released the decal set with all of them. But kids today aren't into that. I asked a guy at a hobby store, I said, do kids ever come in here? Sometimes kids build Gundam models, or something like Gunpla. Yeah. They'll do that. But that Gundam has your anime, and it's got video games, and so Gunpla is makes sense. But no one does that anymore. Like, why build a model? Why spend meticulous amounts of time building a model of the Millennium Falcon when you can play a photorealistic one in Battlefront 2 or something? It's hard. Like, what do you need a model for? And for me, when I was a kid, it was the only way you could have a tactile sense of, you'd imagine it in some kind of, space battle. And now you can actually play it. So why go back and build a model when you can just flip on a PlayStation 5 and get an amazingly rendered version in real time? Oh yeah. It's tough. Those kids today don't know how good we had it.
Analog childhood.
I think it has something to do where you can actually hold it in your hands instead of just seeing it in the screen too, because you can hold the Millennium Falcon. Like, I built all the Enterprises, all the Constitution classes, like you did, Robert. Millennium Falcon, all the Star Wars X-wings, all this stuff. When I was
Don't mention
little.
Space 1999. Jack.
Oh yeah, and Space 1999. Yeah, too. Because I would go to Hobby Lobby and like every week pick something out and just build it. So, and I also think what you said earlier about people don't know how it is, because I worked at Blockbuster at one point and GameStop before it was really bad, but going into the video store or the comic book store or any of that store back in the day, you're just like, It's kind of like, and I will say that Robert, you'll get this reference. Remember when they're gonna kill me if I get this wrong. When Randall goes into the video store and he kneels down and he goes, "This is my place." You know what I'm saying, Robert? And
yeah,
it's like, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, and I'll tell you something. Like when you buy a comic, you spent a lot of time with it. Like I never would go, even when I was buying weekly books and I might have a stack of 20 or 30 or something. I never read a comic just once.
No,
you know,
I didn't either.
You'd pick it up and you'd read it for the story. Then you'd flip through it again and look at the art. And then you'd go back and read it again. And so, like, I couldn't wait when, I'm like, the new issue of such and such is out, because I was so involved in, even like when Daredevil had like the Typhoid Mary run that Ann Nocenti was. I'm like, I like that. Like, I can't wait to see what happens. You know, I'm like,
nice.
I gotta read this, or the Justice League International when with the first Kevin McGuire run on Justice League that Keith Giffen and that I love that run so much. And like when a new issue would come out, that it was so funny, like that comic was so hilarious, and I would take it home and I would anticipate getting the next issue. And so you think about it for like a month. And
One punch.
That's one of the most hilarious. And then how everybody was laughing.
I never get people never let me forget that.
I mean, but it was so another thing about that comic was Kevin McGuire's faces. The way he drew faces was like nothing. No one ever drew faces like him in comics before.
It was unique. Yeah, you're right.
Totally unique. And when you would get it, it made that comic. I felt like I was watching a movie, because the emotion and the humor and like the way he drew a face just made me laugh, you know. And it was, and how he gave the characters literal. It was almost like the characters were not drawn; they were acting, like they had minds of their own, like some kind of AI comic book panel mind. And like you look at them and you really felt emotions being conveyed by those facial expressions, and that never had happened before.
Well,
not like that.
When Booster and when Booster, they would have the expressions when they're pulling pranks. And then you would have Guy in the background, sometimes with a sour face on, or you would have Bats over in the corner. He's like, like you said, all the expressions on their face. And when Beetle would lose it, he would have those expressions like just dying laughing.
Yeah, he'd have to do the belly laugh. He'd be literally holding his belly laughing.
Yeah, he would literally like
blah ha ha.
Yeah, blah, ha, ha, blah, ha, ha. And that was something new, and again, part of the '80s and the experience of buying comics, and it was a whole different, it was a whole different mindset. And at the same time, you had these mind-blowing comics, whether it was Dark, of course, obviously Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, but everybody was doing really interesting stuff for the most part, and it was a joy. You walked out of a comic book store with a huge smile on your face.
I would tell you something, Robert, that blew my mind. I would tell you something that blew my mind the first time I read it was Infinity Gauntlet 1. When the first issue came out, I read that issue like 20 times within an hour. Yeah. I was just like, oh my God. I can't. And then it get to the end and you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? I need to get this now. I was like, I can't wait for this.
I have to tell you, I was talking about this the other day. Alpha Flight 12.
Oh,
when Vindicator or Guardian blows up.
Oh yeah.
It was, I literally if you're jock or you could be gobsmacked, I could not believe. I was like, no, I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe the end of that comic. And that had never happened to me before. And then in issue 24, when he comes back and the long explanation about how he's on that was mind blowing too. And I'm like, wow, those were the days, man. I was actually stunned by the end of a comic. Although I was the end of, the Apocalypse Now issue of Daredevil, where Matt Murdock comes home to his tenement and it turns to rubble. And he picks up his Daredevil costume. He's like, Kingpin, you shouldn't have signed this.
Shouldn't have signed it.
He should have signed it. And I was like, wow, that was dope.
In my opinion, that is Frank Miller's greatest work ever. And of course, Dave Mazzucchelli drew it, which was a good thing because Miller's art would have been not worked for that comic, and the way he changed his style. That's my favorite of all of his Daredevil for me.
Robert, I gotta say, how about that part where Spidey goes to Kingpin, and he goes through the entire prison, takes everybody out, gets right up to Kingpin, and he goes, I told you I could do this if I want to. I just don't want to do it. That blew me away, that part right there. It's just, I was like, oh my God, that was awesome. And then he walks out of the prison, just goes and just leaves. That was just
where is that writing today?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're not really, we're kind of off topic, not talking about.
No, you're right. Where is that? Well, the thing is, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of it is now is either focusing on message or taking a character and making a self-insert of themselves. And just some guy has pointed out a lot. It's like nowadays, the thing is, when you write a character, I mean, it's one thing when you put a sliver of yourself, but they're doing a full-on insert of who they are. Like when a writer writes Batman, they should become Batman, not Batman becomes the writer, but we're getting the opposite.
And that's the worst kind of writing.
Yes.
It's
lazy.
The worst kind of writing. I mean, that's what Mary Sue, people talk about, well, this character is a Mary Sue. Actually, a real Mary Sue is when the author inserts themselves as a wish fulfillment character in the comic to interact. Like it really, I first heard that term because it was happening in Star Trek novels.
Oh,
in the 80s, and there was two. One was Dreadnought, and this main character would be like this woman wrote herself into the story, a character we don't know from like the lower decks, and she ends up saving Kirk and Spock and McCoy. And that was the first time I ever heard. Yeah. So when people started calling, that person's a Mary Sue, I'm like, nah, a Mary Sue is not that. It didn't start out that way. It was like an author, and now there's so much Mary Sue writing in comics. It's hard. I can't get past it.
Yeah,
you can't. It's like, especially when it's becoming more and more prominent.
I will say this, and I got to give them props. I will say the Comicsgate boys and women are doing a fantastic job on putting stuff out. People like Ethan and everybody else that are bringing all the comics like Cyberfrog. Billy Tucci brought She back.
Right.
There's just a ton of the guys over in the Comicsgate, and I will support all those guys fully because they're awesome and they're actually bringing story and stuff back. What we've been missing, you know what I'm saying? That literally those are the only comics I've been buying. So
well, because you have real, I mean, a lot of these people too have honed their craft for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that we see is that there isn't, even the comic writers, like you go back to people like Howard Chaykin when he was doing American Flag, or you go back to Denny O'Neil, and you go back to these were guys that had been writing or in different formats, or they got into comics because a lot of them were trained as writers or they studied literature. And I think the problem is we just don't have, to be a good writer, you need a literary background of some kind. You need, and not reading whatever intersectional texts they're giving you to read in college now. I'm talking about an understanding of the classic dramatic structure and things like that. And that's why these stories work. That's why the structures work for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And now it's all being discarded and it's not working. When people don't have an understanding of the basics, they don't have the tools, they don't understand the language or what grammar is, or how to just plot a story. It's hard to go, and if all you've ever read is comic books without an understanding of the literary component to it, it turns out not well.
Yeah, that's exactly. Alan Moore was even saying that in the '80s in one of the interview show he did for there was an interview with him when he was talking about Watchmen before it came out. And he talked about, he said it's sort of an inbreeding type thing. A lot of these people writing some of the comics, even at that time, although the comics were far better, some of the ones writing the mainstream books were just basing the things off of the comic books they read. He said you should go way outside of the comics mainstream. You should read other things from all others. This is before he went nuts, of course. From all other sources, listen to music, look at all of it, draw inspiration from a lot of things, not just the comic books you've read. Now they're not even doing that. But at that point, he was pointing out a problem with comic book writing.
Well, even though I like Jeff Johns as a comic writer, I've enjoyed his stuff. I enjoy him as he seems to me like he's always been a real knowledgeable comic fan turned writer.
He is.
Whereas if you go and you look at Doomsday Clock and compare it to Watchmen, you don't have. I mean, Alan Moore he knows so much about so many things. He has a real background in art and literature and music. Jeff Johns doesn't have any of that, and the writing is just not. There's no the level of sophistication between those two books there's a wide gulf there.
We were really spoiled growing up in the eras that we did, because a lot of those writers were either World War II vets, or they had been they had done so much, right? There was even later on, Vietnam War, everything going on in the social economic part of the United States and the world. There was political unrest. There was countries that, remember, we had Libya, we had the whole problems in the Middle East. There was a whole bunch of things that we grew up with in those times that created great writers. Yeah, it's great to and most of them too, they didn't have degrees, or they didn't have a big education to say, hey, yeah, I went to college for 4 years and got a creative writing degree. Like it was the school of hard knocks, and that's why their writing was so sophisticated. Yeah, I think that today it's a totally different society where everything's kind of handed to you, and when you grow up, it's all about this sense of entitlement that a lot of these people have, and when you have when you come from the richest group of individuals ever in history, and you're the children of those people, where you've had food on your table, you've never had to go to war, you've never had to see the world in turmoil, and you've never had to feel any kind of threats from an external source, minus, of course, that thing that happened in New York a couple of years ago. And I think that that's the real difference in writing today. You're spot on when you talked about sophistication of writing, because we were spoiled in those days. You go back and read some of those stories. I just use a Green Lantern one, for example, too. Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and we have Speedy, and what happened in that cover is one of the most iconic covers of all time. And that's a story that you can't write unless you have some experience with that topic.
I don't even know if they'd let you write that today.
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't.
Be problematic.
No, they
unless they
wouldn't.
race swapped everybody.
No, that would not be written one iota today. Not most of that stuff in the 80s and 70s wouldn't allow that.
Unless you're in a van down by the river, then maybe.
Or as.
I mean, even like the underground comics, those things would be so canceled.
Oh,
you know, the stuff that I find that there's I think one of my problems with cancel culture on one hand is that I understand people want to be mindful of other people's feelings and representation, but also it's infantilized a lot of us. Agreed. You know, it's made us not understand nuance and not get it's sort of antithetical to human nature as well. Like you're not taking into account the way people think and the way people feel. Like, what utopian civilization do you think you're creating? Where is this civilization that can you please show me this civilization in human history that existed where everybody was nice to everybody all the time, where nobody had any dark thoughts or any of that? Where did that exist? And the answer is nowhere.
There's no subtlety in storytelling. They got to beat you over the head with it, and they got to talk down to you the whole time. It's just ridiculous.
And it's interesting because when you go back and you show people these things that they existed, like whether it's comic books, whether it's horror movies, like in the 70s, show somebody the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the tone of that movie is incredibly disturbing. Oh, yeah. You know, and now it's even hard. You go back and you watch, oh, I thought it was boring. I'm like, and it doesn't work. It doesn't cast the spell the way it did because, people aren't even trained to watch a movie like that anymore.
It's shock porn. It's like Saw. It's like cutting someone's arm off or something. That's it. There's no storytelling. It's all gratuitous violence.
And
Like, but I have a thing on this. I have a thing on this one, Robert. I think that and you may hate me on this one. I think that the rebooted version of The Evil Dead was kind of like that, even though Raimi was a little bit involved in stuff. But it was kind of like torture porn, and I didn't like it. I will rather go watch Evil Dead 1, 2, or 3 rather than that reboot of the Evil Dead. And that just,
Those are guilty pleasures too. I love those classic ones.
And
the Hills Run Red. I think we have
Yeah.
someone here who did a horror classic right there.
You're too kind.
And Texas Chainsaw. That was your first movie, right, Robert?
The Leatherface. The third one, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Yeah, that was it's a different world. I mean, I think that the problem is the level of sophistication. People used to have so many different areas of interests. Like if you like music, you liked all kinds of music. Like that was another thing about pop culture in the 80s. It wasn't just comics. It was music and movies. It all combined together. So if you were a fan of comic books, a lot of comic books were there was a comic book I went to. I grew up in Seattle called Time Travelers. Half of it was an independent record store with a lot of punk rock and a lot of local music. And you'd have comic books, and they would sell things like movie posters. And it was kind of this grungy store on 2nd Avenue in downtown Seattle. And, I had to go in there, and I would look through, I would buy music as well. So you'd go home with your comics, and then you'd play a band you'd never heard of and be like, wow, this is kind of mind blowing. And it all kind of worked together as this continuum. And now I feel like we just don't have pop culture like that anymore. The world is different. And I don't necessarily think it's better. It's not better because look, man, I look at the level of craftsmanship in video games today. That didn't even exist when I was younger. And now when you see a game like The Last of Us and you get involved in the storyline, that's amazing. To me, that's like what a comic book was. A great video game. I mean, it's not one creator, but a great video game, like maybe it is like Metal Gear Solid or something, but a great video game can involve you the way a great comic run used to be able to involve you.
Absolutely.
But it's more immersive because you're playing the main character. And I think that's kind of how it's just different now.
That's why I think it was a miracle that we got The Blackest Night and we got the Sinestro Corps War, and I think that was it, in the 2009 2010. So that's not that far off, 10 years ago, right? And I think that's the storylines that we got in that was a lot better than what I've seen in the last 10 years. Can you name me one memorable run of any comic book in the last 10 years that sticks out like that? Just one.
I like the Court of Owls.
Did you really?
Court of Yeah, I like some of it.
Azraello's Wonder Woman was in Chiang. That was magnificent. How do the Amazons procreate? Well, they tell you. It was dark.
Super Sons.
Is that something that we really needed to know, though?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I just like the idea that Gotham City had a history that hadn't been delved into before. I kind of like that. I thought it was sort of new and interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't like all of it, but it was something that, and again, maybe it's because I bought the Absolute edition. So when you're reading those, it's like this widescreen comic and like I but that's like the only, when you asked me a question, that was the only thing that came to my mind. I wish that apart from the big superhero houses from Marvel and DC, that I go back and I think about the Wicked and the Divine. I'm like, well, that was really cool,
right?
Or Daniel Clow's Patience, the graphic novel Patience that came out 4 or 5 years ago. I really like that. I thought that was really good, but that's not a superhero comic.
True.
Yeah, well, the Screw 52 chased me away in 2011. But I did stay faithful to the great Kurz Busiek's Astro City and its Vertigo run when it finally brought it back. And wasn't as great as his early Astro City, but that was for the years the only thing I was barely even touching.
No, that was good though. I mean, Astro City was good.
Especially in his first couple of runs of those, the different miniseries, and then his ongoing series of some of the greatest superhero comics ever written. I'll put him up against anything in terms of the way he it was genius. Some of the stuff he did on Astro City.
Yeah,
absolutely. My favorite comic of the last 10 years is also my greatest heartbreak. It's Matt Fraction's Casanova. Like, what the hell happened to Casanova? Did that die in the vine or something? That was a magnificent funny book.
Cool.
Don't know that. Don't know that.
You know,
and
my question is, everybody on the panel here, if we're talking about Green Lantern, does everybody have a favorite? Like, it doesn't have to be one of the big guys too. It could be a secondary character, but who's their favorite?
Lantern?
Chip.
Yeah.
Hi, Chip.
Hal Jordan.
You like
Chip
North
I mean,
Salak?
I'm such a classic.
Outside of Hal Jordan, it would be Kilowog.
I already have mine.
Who's your favorite?
I already have mine in my picture.
I'm gonna go with Hal Jordan. I mean, obviously I say that last week, but I just once again he's that hothead. He's the evil Knievel. He's the guy who lives life on the edge. And as we mentioned, when Oa, the Guardians of Oa, like, oh, there's Hal again. What did he do now? I just love that edge of suspense feeling with Hal. So I'm gonna go with Hal because part of that I would probably said John Stewart because of his disciplined militaristic background. You gotta appreciate that, but once I saw Hal just like more chaotic and over the edge, I'm like, oh man, I love this guy. He knows how to live his life. And I mean, as Robert Meyer Burnett said, like Top Gun meets Star Wars with Hal Jordan. It totally is. I'm like, wow, that can be a perfect comparison.
You know, I have to say, I was just looking this up. I had to go find out the name. The Rotlop fan. Do you guys remember Rotlop fan?
The dead one.
Yeah, I was like, I just thought that guy looked cool. I'm like, I want an action figure of that.
Where he was falling apart. Yeah,
All head.
Yeah.
Eric, your favorite?
My Chip.
Chip.
Really is Chip.
Squirrel.
Not
He's a squirrel.
North then. Not North then, right?
Not North.
Sure.
Chip. His replacement.
I can't talk you into North then, is what you're saying.
North tried too hard.
It's Hal. Hal is the greatest Green Lantern in the universe, and that's it. I love Alan, the real Alan Scott, of course, but it's Hal. But if you go just away from those bigger obvious ones, man, you gotta love Tomari. It's a great Green Lantern, and who doesn't love Kilowog? You know, Kat Matui. You know,
Kat Matui.
Aricia too. You gotta give some shout out to Aricia. Yeah, she's not bad.
Mogo.
Mogo's the best. Yeah,
Mogo.
The big man himself.
Mogo, the planet. The Alan Moore.
Yeah,
I love Mogo.
Yes,
I love Mogo.
I always love the stories with Salak and Chip when they both got together, because you've got the straight man and you've got Chip, of course, is just the stories that they did back when they were stuck on Earth, and until they did that silly Death of Chip thing where he got run over by a truck. But
Mosaic,
I mean, when we talked about it last week, F. Sharp Bell needs more comics.
F. Sharp Bell.
Oh yeah.
Alan Moore, one of his. I mean, those two backups he did. And we did a few other ones, but the two that he did in Tales of Green Lantern Corps, and we did touch on that a little bit last week. Tigers, that Abin Sur origin that introduced Sodom Yacht was a masterpiece, and so was. Of course,
I like that character.
F. Sharp Bell.
Somebody mentioned Jack T. Chance too. That's a cool character.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah. Who was that? Was that you, Ray, or was that Eric? Did you mention?
I did last week.
Yeah. There's some great Tales of the Green Lantern Corps issues that they did when they did the quarterlies. There was a lot of great stories that come out of there. That we got to fill out some of the ranks of the Green Lanterns, but Hal Jordan will always be the greatest of all time. Yeah. I love John Stewart for having that character arc that he did for Mosaic and trying to recover from killing that being responsible for the death of that planet. That was a great arc for him. Guy Gardner, man, One Punch, the Justice League International issues that he was in was just a hoot. That was one of those titles, Robert, that you mentioned that you read over and over again because it's just so great.
I mean, I don't usually go for like the comedic superhero stuff, although I had an affinity. I hate to admit this, but Batman and the Outsiders, the Aparo.
with
Halo and so ridiculous. So ridiculous.
Metamorpho.
Yeah, and Katana. But I mean, those Justice League International issues, just Justice League when it started, I loved. I mean, even the Elron, the galactic dictator. I mean, all that stuff was just hilarious. It was hilarious. I couldn't believe they were publishing it.
I love Maxwell Lord. He was great.
He was so good. I mean, that's why I was so disappointed in Wonder Woman 84. I'm like, how do you go back to?
Yeah, how do you screw up Maxwell Lord? You know, he's
we know why they want to screw him up. Absolutely, he was a stand-in.
Yeah, I know. We knew who he was a stand-in for.
But you had Mr. Miracle and Oberon in there too, right? We had Mr. Miracle and Oberon.
Yep.
You had some great characters in that run that just,
I Captain Whitebread. Still do.
Yep.
My best scene,
Captain Whitebread
scene in Rebirth was, well, one of my favorite was when Guy was leaving Earth with Kyle and he moons Batman. Anybody who can moon Batman is aces in my book.
That was a bit asinine.
I got a question. What are your feelings on the animated series?
Oh, so good. I love that show.
Love that show.
As a Star Trek fan, as a lifelong Star Trek fan, this has Easter eggs all about it.
Yeah, it does.
Like sound of the ship is an Enterprise TOS sound.
What?
Yeah, check it out next time you watch it. Keep your ears open.
I was really disappointed that they canceled it.
You know why, right, Lord Thoth?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, the fact that obviously we know the stigma, the 2011 movies attached, but they also premiered, I think it was on Cartoon Network. They did the whole Friday night premiere. That makes your show dead on arrival because most of us in the normal world are doing things on Friday night. And it's just like, it was unfortunate because I was catching those episodes initially, not like, right away live on TV, but I would catch the reruns. I'm like, oh, this show is badass. But then I heard about the season canceling. I'm like, well, they should have never done that. Like Friday night, like we all had lives, man.
Yeah,
unfortunate.
Did you ever watch that show, R&B?
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
Well, you had some great characters. You had Razor.
It was good.
Which was a unique Red Lantern, right? You had Aya, which was the ship. Was it Aya? Yeah,
it was Aya. It was. Yeah.
You got some of the Guardians. You got Said. You got Ganthet was on it.
That's right.
But we got to see Mogo. Yeah, we got to see Mogo. We got to see Chazlon. We got to see Tomari. Atrocitus, which is cool.
He had a great arc.
Bleeze. I love Bleeze too.
Guy Gardner.
Yep. Saint Walker was in that. Carol Ferris.
Yeah.
And
Manhunters. That's right.
I almost forgot.
You're the
Lara Flees. Lara Flees was in it.
Lara Flees was on it.
Lara Flees.
That was a great Lara Flees. I love Lara Flees.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a great show. It had so much potential. On the opposite side of the things, the Legion of Superheroes one wasn't very good, but the Green Lantern one was very good.
Great cameo by the Anti-Monitor armor. I loved that part. Aya boost the Anti-Monitor's armor. That was superior. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the Manhunters part, right? When they did them through the Manhunters, right. I think, wasn't? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since. When did that come out anyway?
2011-ish.
Yeah, you're right. Flavor Flavs. Yeah. 2011.
Yes,
2012.
Yes, Raymond. It is on Blu-ray. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
That's all 26 episodes on that one, dude.
Physical media.
Nice.
Physical media.
But
guys, everybody get as much as you can right now before they ban it all.
Now you know why. You know why that was good, right? We got to do a shout out to Bruce Timm. Great last name.
Yeah, right.
I think that Bruce Timm had a lot to deal with the reason why that went so well. He wrote some great stories, including New Frontier and a Green Lantern retelling, which wasn't bad for that era. I think that it was he was completely behind the show and thought that it would be a great way to introduce people to kind of the animated version of Green Lantern, and I thought it was very well done.
Yeah,
it was.
I love it. Also, if anyone wants to watch something cool, Green Lantern, the DC animated film Green Lantern First Flight. It took me a while to warm up to. There's some things in it that I didn't like much that they messed around with, but it's still pretty good. But Emerald Knights is terrific.
So good.
That is really good.
That is good. I showed my girlfriend that one last night. She was like blown away. She was like, "Whoa,
I love that one."
I mean, they keep threatening that they're going to make this for HBO Max the Green Lantern core series, and I would love to see it done well. I mean,
me too.
The mythology is so rich and the characters are so great, and now the technology exists where you can bring them all to light. Green Lantern's light. That I think it could be. I'm really looking forward to a Green Lantern Corps series. I hope it happens.
It's going to be though. It's CW.
Well, but they're going to do it for HBO Max, right?
Is it going to be HBO?
Yeah,
I think it's going to be HBO Max. So they can make it. But I mean, the one thing about the CW is they have to know their audience. So the CW shows, I think, have been really hit and miss, sort of, and again, tonally, but they're made for that certain audience. But you move it over to HBO Max, I mean, I'd love to see. I mean, not necessarily this tone, but the in-depth nature of the serialized storytelling of Game of Thrones at its best, or The Sopranos at its best, or even something like 6 Feet Under at its best. If you could have a Green Lantern show that combined great plotting and great epic storytelling with great characterization, it could be really, really cool. It could be one of the great sci-fi shows ever made.
You gotta spend a lot of money for it. You can't cheapen on a show like that. You gotta commit to space with it. You can't make it an Earth show. You gotta commit to it with space.
Yep, I agree.
The Wire.
Oh yeah,
The Wire. Yeah. Oh man, can you imagine a Green Lantern show that was as in depth as The Wire?
Oh my!
I would love that. I would love that.
You know, because we touched a lot about this a little bit last week. Green Lantern is such a wonderful concept. Obviously, when Julius Schwartz decided, and I loved Alan Scott Golden Age Green Lantern, but y'all know he just found the Magic Lantern in the mid 50s when the Silver Age was ushered in by Julius Schwartz and others at DC. He decided that he didn't like that, so he, along with John Broome and Gil Kane, they came up with this marvelous concept of the Guardians of the Universe, not Galaxy. They were first, and the Green Lantern Corps, and all these different Green Lanterns, and it was very science fiction. This is a guy that Julius Schwartz. I mean, he discovered Ray Bradbury. He represented Alfred Bester and others. He was a science fiction writer agent. He knew H.P. Lovecraft. This was a guy who was steeped in science fiction and loved science fiction, and that's why Green Lantern Corps and the Legion of Superheroes are two of the best amalgamations of science fiction and superhero genre. And that's why one of the things I love about them. They're very Star Trek for superheroes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that needs to be understood. That's the kind of thing it could be. And I think the Green Lantern movie didn't quite get there.
No, but you were saying they have not to backtrack just a little bit, but we were talking about the HBO Max TV show, but they're not going to be concentrating on Jon Stewart or Hal Jordan. I heard that it was going to be Alan Scott was going to be a big part of it, especially at the beginning. You're going to have Guy Gardner, Simon Baz, and Jessica Cruz. Right. So, and you're going to have some of the Green Lantern Corps, obviously Sinestro and Kilowog will probably be in there. So do you think that TV show is going to be like that because they wanted to stay away from Jon Stewart, because they might be putting him in a CW show, and they wanted to stay away from Hal Jordan because that might be the next movie? Is that what you're thinking? Or do you think it's going to be a good show based on those characters?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think anything can be good if it's well written and the showrunners really understand the kind of material. And I think that the lineup they have, I mean, we live in a time where we are going to get shows with all kinds of representation in them. They want to get different kinds of people. And the thing about Hal Jordan is, yet another white male superhero character, which I get that. I don't mind. I mean, I'm all for diversity of storytelling as long as the characters are good and the writing is good. Great characters and a good story. That's all that matters to me. And I think having a lesser lineup of characters allows a little bit more freedom in terms of getting to know those characters. Because remember, when you're dealing with a legacy character like Hal Jordan, or even now Jon Stewart, or Kyle Rayner or Guy Gardner, like those four characters, everyone knows those characters and everyone has expectations. But if you want to talk about the Green Lantern concept, and because, even us, like I go into that Green Lantern movie when it opened, I'm like, I loved Hal Jordan growing up. He was a member of the Justice League. I've always loved, and he's a test pilot. And, you're watching all this stuff. And then when it sort of deviates and they show Parallax being this evil blob, like it was kind of like the evil in The Fifth Element or whatever. And I'm like, what the hell is
I know, right?
What is this? Like, I know you have to give it a big bad, but it was so interesting to me that
he was yellow internet gas is what he was. Yellow internet.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that evil has no you would have think, I mean, obviously I loved Mark Strong as Sinestro, and you look at that and you're like, wouldn't it have been interesting if there was a relationship there between Hal Jordan and Sinestro, and you and it kind of was there, but
exactly.
There's your movie. I mean, it should have been Lethal Weapon. And what if you had Lethal Weapon and Riggs, instead of Riggs being crazy, Riggs was the wide-eyed and bushy-tailed Earthman, and Murtaugh, the old guy, and getting too old for this shit, is not old. It turns out he's evil, or he's got avarice in his heart, and you watch this Lethal Weapon movie and you find out that the real villain is one of our main characers, our partner. You know, and you're preaching to the choir. Yeah, well, again, I mean, I think a lot of the problem with this material, when we see nowadays so much of this, our pop culture that we've grown up loving, is being mined for TV and movies, but it's being mined by people that don't. They're going back and they're trying to make sense of all of this from a perspective of today, and they don't have the big picture. They don't understand, and it's really hard to go back. And you can't. How do you consume? Well, Alan Scott goes back to how far? I mean, how do you consume all of that and really holistically understand these characters and are able to come up with, and that's the funny thing. I mean, you look at the MCU, they go back to their comic book runs. Like I remember I read Brubaker's Winter Soldier run and his entire run on one afternoon. I pulled out the omnibuses and I read all of Brubaker's Captain America run, which took us through Winter Soldier and Secret Invasion and all that. I'm like, this is great. Like I thought I would just read a few issues. No, I mean, I whipped through like four omnibuses. I read the entire run in a day, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like I couldn't get enough.
You have basted Falcon and the Winter Soldier on that run?
Well, the thing is, but they got the character from that run. You know, and while I mean, I think yes, that run is amazing, but at least Marvel goes back and they use that as the basis of inspiration to take those characters from, and whether they're more successful than others, but everyone else, like, why wouldn't you? I mean, now you got somebody like Jeff Johns who's involved with making these things, but why wouldn't you? People are so afraid, like they hire these screenwriters who come on board and they're not going to go back and look at a comic book run because that's not what they're getting paid to do. And now I would say, why not? You know, if you're hired to write one of these movies, go back to your favorite run of these books and translate that. You know, but then of course maybe they don't get paid. Maybe there's rights payments that have to go somewhere. I don't know. It's but again, I find it incredibly frustrating that there's decades of great story material, decades, and you can go back and mine it, and it would at least inform your approach.
And that's what they kind of tried to do for WandaVision, right?
Oh, and then
they dropped the ball at the end.
Yeah, they shit the bed like Amber Heard in the last episode. So I'm just saying.
Oh my goodness!
The episode before was awesome.
Oh,
I liked it.
Love the episode.
But
before.
then that last episode, they're like, "Hey, my name's Amber Heard. I'm gonna just come in here and let you know." So I like some of it, but I'm just why did you stick? You led up to such a good thing. You did such a good episode in that last episode. I was like, why? Like, ugh.
It's hard to have a good ending.
I know.
It is. No, it is. And Rob's right. It is hard to have a good ending, especially with the way they built that show up and the way that I think if they took out the marketing of leading it to Strange, we would not have as much speculating.
Right.
Because when you we're comic fans, we love putting two and two together. We're like, oh, hold on, this is connected to this. There's gotta be something there. We look for the correlations, and it didn't help that they pulled also an Iron Man 3 with another Mandarin twist as well. So it's just like no more. We get clouds and ideas. So
how do you not drop Benedict Cumberbatch in a post-credit scenes last episode like Luke Skywalker, like you did for Mandalorian.
That doesn't help either.
He drops in and he goes, "What's going on here?" Or something. It could only, and it may mean you could even do it green screen. He could be in London. They could just do a screen, like they could fill in the characters and just have bam, him show up and go, and that leads into the movie. What about her going to an old abandoned house and all? Like, it's just, I think they really dropped the ball. The villain that should have been a lot better. It shouldn't have been. Anyway, I know this isn't about.
No, you're right. I mean, the thing is, they should have never said to begin with that there's going to be a big reveal. If they had never said that, we would have not been misled with. That's a problem with marketing.
It was an actor, and I think when Paul Bettany jokes that I get to work with an actor I've wanted to work with for a long time, and it turns out it's himself. We misinterpreted that. I think a lot of it was really interesting. Like, and by the way, of course, because the interpretations that we were giving as fans were more interesting than what we eventually got.
Yeah,
and I think it was. So what I found strange, like the character of Agatha Harkness, obviously they took that from the comics. They even showed us her origin in the 1600s in Salem. Yeah. So if you're saying that, and then they bring in all of this arcane magic and the spell and the dark hold and whatever, all this stuff, where did all of that come from? And it became ultimately, so Agatha Harkness comes to the Hex. Why? Like, why did she even show up there? Just because she wanted to find out where that powerful magic is coming from? Mm-hmm. I guess. But so what? Why didn't she? Why would she stick around? I mean, if I was her, I'd find Wanda and be like, this is kind of messed up.
Yeah, making an awful lot of sense there, Rob.
What are you doing here? I don't. She's bringing. Why didn't the Avengers or every meta human on Earth show up at the Hex, being the weirdest, the most bizarre thing happening, ever? Wouldn't that, I mean, I guess it was secret, but wouldn't it have been on the news every night? And
at the very least, Doctor Strange.
And then you're arresting the good guy at the end because he was trying to stop all this. You're arresting the white male patriarchal figure who was trying to stop all this, and he wasn't an alien, he wasn't a Skrull, he wasn't he was actually the good guy. He was trying to stop this, and yet you're arresting him. Why? He was in charge. The whole plot line kind of fell off after about episode 5. There were some really, really good episodes, and then it just. I don't know what happened.
There were a few good episodes, and I talked to Robert on Twitter about that because he said for one of the episodes, he goes, "This episode, we didn't deserve this episode." Remember when you said that, Robert?
Yeah.
On your Twitter, and I was like, I agreed with him, but then the next episode, I was like, why?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I just wonder if WandaVision is a case study of the audience putting too much. Like, I'm wondering if we were just to watch it. I mean, there's no way we could because the expectations that were there. But I think that the lessons that are the real question is, if a Green Lantern series was made, would the showrunners? I know it's still going to be a Greg Berlanti show. But will they be able to make it into something that's timeless, for the ages? Will it be a classic science fiction show that you could look back on and go, this is great stuff? Or is it going to have that pulp CW sensibility that, it's one step away from almost an after-school special? Which isn't always the case.
And thanks for bringing that back, because that's where I was going with that.
The latter.
Exactly.
That's what I was actually thinking too.
Yeah, because I was trying to compare the stories. Like, if we're looking at what has come out lately that would be done the same way as the HBO Max series, and that's the analysis that I look at. And I was thinking that we're looking at WandaVision being a different group of writers and a different team. Absolutely. But are they looking at that as a lesson? Are they going to look at it as a lesson of success, or are they going to look at that as a lesson of failure? And if you're looking at what's going to happen online, you're going to have a lot of old school fans us supposed toxic fans that are going to be watching this show very carefully, because we love the mythos, we love the canon, and you can change it up, and that's fine. We're okay with that. You can look at the Superman and Lois TV show as an example of playing it safe and telling a pretty good story. Yes, there's some serious issues wrong with that show, but it's actually not been bad. You got Superman being Superman, you got Lois being Lois, and you got the two kids, which I could do without. But if you want to make it a family show that brings more people in, I get it. And from what I'm seeing from the casting in this HBO show is you're going to have a young female Green Lantern. Good. You're going to have a black Green Lantern, which is Simon Baz. You're going to have Guy Gardner for the comedy support, which is just going to be a bash the male white guy. And then you have Alan Scott, who's gay in the new modern version, which I dislike.
He's never been
Alan
gay.
Scott in the new
Kyle Rayner. Half Irish and half Mexican.
Yeah.
Kyle Rayner.
I hate Kyle Rayner. He sucks. Sorry.
So that's just what I'm afraid of. And I think that's probably what we're going to get. I would love to see an edgy Green Lantern show, especially if you're going to have the Green Lantern Corps, because you can have an edgy science fiction Guardians of the Galaxy meets Star Wars meets Star Trek meets a whole bunch of stuff you can meld in there. But I want to see a serious TV show. I don't want to see some comedy lecturing show every week about the modern times. I want to see a cool, edgy science fiction show.
Yeah, that's, I think,
cool.
delving into some really interesting issues. You know, the way that Star Trek was an allegorical story. I mean, if the Green Lantern Corps is out there protecting the galaxy, you know, and you have problems, whatever the Green Lantern Corps faces, there are problems allegorically that can relate back to us, so we understand, you know, what they're going through.
And we can learn more about them too. Like,
not just so parochial. Like,
do they have a prime directive? Do they have a prime directive? Do Green Lantern Corps members get involved into criminal matters on planets everywhere? Like, is there anything that they have limitations on? We've seen that, you can turn off the no-kill part of your ring now based on what happened with Blackest Night, and you can actually do summary justice on the battlefield so that you can execute a criminal based on you being judge, jury, and executioner. Now, that's another thing too. What happens if you have to kill in self-defense? Is there, like, there's so many moral quandaries that based on the 60s Star Trek show that you could look at and use that as a great example.
Yeah. I know, I agree with you, and that's what I mean. Obviously, the Lantern Corps is supposed to bring justice to the galaxy. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
You know, and let's explore that. What is, and if that's the whole thing, what is the overarching idea of the show? Could be, what does justice mean for multiple peoples, multiple races, and it's an allegory for, we have many different kinds of people on this planet, but allegorically we use many different kinds of people in the galaxy. How do you bring justice to people that might have different morals or different standards depending on what planet you're on? How do you do that? And so the overarching question would be that the Lanterns face every episode is, how do we bring our brand of justice and fairness to the galaxy without messing up?
Exactly.
And that question is then asked to us, the viewers, like, how do we do that? We can't even get our own planet in order. You know, there's so many different people here with different points of view. How, and the every episode over, if to me, that's what great science fiction does. You should come away with it going, wow, I can't believe the choice they made. I don't know if I would have done that. And it keeps you coming back for the next week going, how are they going to accomplish this? How are they going to do this? And make it, you know, it could be really an interesting show.
You have an ethical and moral situation too, because every single Green Lantern is from a different corner of the universe.
Right.
So they have different morals, they have different ethics, they have different modes of justice. And when you're looking at, like, look how many we have on Earth alone. And so you're looking at, well, look at the guest stars you could meet too. The Omega Men. You could meet the Gordanians. You could meet the Kuns. You can meet the DC universe has an amazing cosmic heroes and villains out there that we could tap into. The new gods, Darkseid. You've got, like, that TV show could be so unbelievably awesome.
I mean, Darkseid should be there, you know, like the Kingpin.
The big
Yes,
bad.
he.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And like how do you do like the New Gods and Apocalypse and New Genesis? I mean, how are they going to deal with the lanterns? How do the lanterns tell the fourth world what to do with itself? And that relationship could be really cantankerous.
That's a season in itself.
You've got the Dominators. What about the Dominators? What about the Spider
and
Guild?
you got the Manhunters too.
The Manhunters too. You got to bring them in. Absolutely.
The Lords of Chaos.
And
And the Atari Force.
Atari Force.
Yeah.
There's a deep
Atari
cut.
Force.
There's a deep cut. That was a great comic run, actually.
I love it. I just said I sent mine off to get bound into as a hardcover book.
Nice.
Because
I love
they're
Garcia Lopez.
Thanagarians, Ran. You've got
Thanagar, Ran. Adam Strange.
One of my favorite comic series that no one ever talks about is Howard Chaykin's Twilight, which was all about the DC cosmic. It was a prestige bound series. I love that series. I loved it. No one else.
I remember that. I did.
Howard Chaykin's Shadow.
I loved it.
I have it too.
It's great.
Howard Chaykin's Shadow that led into Kyle Baker's Shadow, which was my third copy of that.
Just don't get me started on his Blackhawk.
Well, and you also have, if you're going to hint at other things too, if you're going to hint at other colors of the emotional spectrum, don't forget we've got the controllers out there too, which are the opposites of the Guardians of the Universe. So you're going to have, you could maybe have Carol Ferris could be there too. You could, there's so many
Dark Stars.
Yeah,
The
Dark
Thunderers
Stars.
of
You could
Kevlar.
introduce them. Yeah, that's the controller side of things. Yeah, you could. I mean, you could even do Legion, Legion.
Yeah,
because you had Quirrell Dox. So and his team. There's just so many opportunities to explore the DC universe outside of Earth. But I think this is all going to be probably Earth centric, dealing with the angst and issues of the modern day, and I want to see something a little bit more galactic.
Well, don't we all? That's why I wish they would just do good anime. To be honest with you, live action stuff, there's some of it I like, but I guess I'm just regressing and I get old. But I'd rather see some great animation stuff. Like they've ruined the DC animated films to me because I used to love them until they went Screw 52. I'd love to see more of those. I would love to see more something like more along the lines of the Bruce Timm Justice League and his Bruce Timm animated verse, things like that. Good. And with Marvel, same deal. I would love to see more good animation, and they could then they could keep the movies. I mean,
when you do that, Clobberin, you don't have to worry about the budget as much. You don't have to worry about the CG as much. It's just like, oh, okay, good. Those aren't considered. And us people, we're not going to be eyeing at those details because we're just going to be reveling in the animation and taking it all in. And you don't have to worry about having the green screens either. It's just, oh my God, the things that they could pull off with animation nowadays, especially I feel like it would benefit from that. I agree.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. That got cut short too quickly.
Yep.
So,
well, you have Starro, which we're going to see in a certain movie coming out soon, which is that is just the funniest thing I've ever seen. Who would have ever thought that we'd see an ancient Justice League villain show up in a Suicide Squad movie?
How insane is that, by the way?
I actually like that. I like how outlandish that is. That's what I want. I want the stories to go crazy because the thing is, the beauty of the DC Comics world, we saw all these crazy things that wouldn't happen in the world. Now we're having these people who are basically, most of them are humans. Obviously, you have some exceptions, but your Polka Dot Mans or Peacemakers going up against a world-ending threat like Starro, that's perfect. I want that outlandish. I love bombastic, and the fact that regardless of how you feel about James Gunn, the trailer, this movie looks like it knows the comic books and is taking pride in that. We need more of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was even in Zack Snyder's Justice League, there was a little bit of a Starro callback when Steppenwolf used his little device to read the... I mean, it was completely Starro.
I noticed that.
The mechanical spider creature.
Yeah. And when it goes over the Atlantean's face, I'm like, oh my... I had to smile because I'm like, that is Starro. It's Starro, you know? But... no one, you guys are the only people that would know that what I'm talking about. They're like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, Starro. And like, how do you not know Starro? I guess as a lifelong Justice League fan,
Yeah,
and they've used Starro like the there was some creepy stuff that was at Grant Morrison that in his Justice League where he used Starro. It was really creepy. And I when I saw Starro in that trailer, I freaked out. I'm like, oh my god!
So did I.
And no one understood. I'm like, oh my god, Starro is in the Suicide Squad. And people are like, what is that? Who cares? I'm like, who cares? The fact that they did that at all, it's so amazing. Give me a break.
Yeah, right.
So, Robert, we know how they're gonna probably kill people off. Starro's gonna take them, and they're gonna have to go against each other. So,
oh yeah, I that's what I was thinking.
I'm hoping so.
And I hope they have the starfish over their faces when they do it.
Yeah.
You know, because he will. You know that they have to do that.
Oh, he will. Yeah, that's gonna happen. I mean, keep thinking that Brian Boland Justice League cover with the Starro all over their faces.
Oh, I love that. I love people on Twitter. I was talking about. I tweeted out. I said, "Can we just talk about how Starro is in the Suicide Squad trailer?"
Yeah.
And people like, "Oh," someone said back. Someone wrote back, "Oh, like you think it's so cool that there's some obscure Justice League character that you've never heard of before." And I'm like, "Yes, I do.
Yes.
You know." And I mean, I've known Starro my whole life. As a little kid, I loved. Yes, the dumbest thing in the world, maybe, but I loved Starro, and the fact that they're doing it.
I know, right? No, you had to be a comics fan to embrace that thing. And that's the thing. Guys like us, right? Well, yeah, let's have a conversation about that. The excitement just off that alone as the villain against just a bunch of Earth people, dude, come on.
I mean, when I first saw the trailer, I had to go back frame by frame, because you can't really, it's a kaiju, but there's a shot on the monitor screen. Yeah. And I stopped, I frame grabbed it, and I'm like, that's Starro. Like it's unmistakably it's Starro, and I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, and I was waiting to see like some think piece about it, and it didn't come. Did somebody write a big article about how Starro is in this movie?
Nope, no one.
I didn't mean anybody, and I was out there tweeting it, and people are like giving me a hard time, like, I don't even know what that is. I'm like, that isn't my problem that you don't know what it is. It's fucking cool, man. It's cool.
Oh, wait a minute? Did you see what Ironcaster said in the chat? He says every 1/6 scale Suicide Squad sideshow figure needs to come with the Starro Starfish just because.
They've got to have it's got to be magnetic, so there's got to be magnet, so you can stick it on.
Well, Rob, use your connections to Hot Toys, Rob.
I wish I had some, but my connection is Justin from Justin's Collection, the best Hot Toys channel on YouTube.
Shout out to Justin.
I mean, I got to reach out. I think that's a great idea, but they'll probably look, Hot Toys. If that happens in the movie, Hot Toys will make those characters. I hope the movie's a huge success because I want a King Shark Hot Toy figure.
Oh my god, Sylvester!
Right?
I mean, and Sylvester Stallone is doing the voice of King Shark. It's like, come on.
Do you know what I want to hear? You know what I want to hear King Shark do? I want to hear King Shark go, "I am the law." I just want to hear him say it. I just want to hear him say it.
I will say that was the funniest. That was the funniest part of that whole trailer was when he puts his hand up and he goes, "And yes, that's your hand." Yeah. I will say this for James Gunn. All of his public persona aside, he's been great for movies because I know all of you here in the chat and all of us on the panel really appreciate the little callbacks. We got that in Guardians of the Galaxy. We saw how much he truly loved that part of the universe, and I'm kind of hoping he's going to put that slant on the DC version. I think that his sense of humor is dark and macabre, and I love that because that's really kind of the way I am.
Yeah.
And I think that he's going to do that for the Suicide Squad. If he was involved in writing this at all, he picked some weird
he directed it. He wrote the whole thing.
I mean, Peacemaker. I mean, come on. Like, I think it's going to be good. and I'm hoping it's going to be great. And it really depends on how the normies respond. And so that's where you got to put the humor into it, like Guardians did, and yet leave those little Easter eggs for those of us who truly love this kind of thing. So I'm hoping it's going to be a hit and the #1 DC movie of all time. I hope.
Do you know how many John Cena memes there are going to be when he comes out? His name is Peacemaker. Dun, 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 dun.
I can't see him.
And they're making a series. They're doing an HBO series, Peacemaker series too.
Yeah.
By the way, if anybody's interested, James Gunn wrote a novel called The Toy Collector that it's dark. And if anybody's interested, it's, and the funny thing about James is he has a very dark sense of humor. I actually worked with him on a film 20 years ago. And he I love the guy. I think he's great. But, like when he had when these tweets, he worked for Trauma. I mean, he had a really dark black sense of humor. And the fact that he was being skewered over, I'm like, you guys just don't get. He has that. You have to understand that was his sense of humor.
Oh yeah.
And it's there in the novel he wrote. It's in his, Romeo and Juliet and
Robert, I got to hang out with the Trauma crew in like 95 and 96 at Comic-Con in San Diego. So I know how dark they are.
Yeah.
I got to go to parties with them and all this other stuff. So yeah, but they're the Trauma, and I got to say this, even to this day, the Trauma people are freaking cool.
Yeah, they are.
Well, it's like Lloyd. Lloyd is awesome.
They have an underground comic sensibility.
Yeah, they do.
And I think that is something that people don't understand anymore. Like the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers and even Fritz the Cat. I mean, all the stuff that I grew up with, this sort of punk rock comics, it wouldn't fly today. People would be like, that's just not nice. Like, well, yeah. I mean, I think there's why do people have this idea that human beings are inherently good? Like,
they're not.
I think I think that human beings we're an awful dastardly species, and this idea that we're going to live in some kumbaya utopian civilization where everyone's going to be nice to each other. I don't want to feel bad. I'm like, then what race are you a part of? You're a part of a race that's been victimizing itself since we came out of the trees, man.
I don't know.
Idea that you're
defund the police. Defund the police.
Oh yeah, that's a good. There's a good idea.
Now let's see what happens when we defund the police. Yeah.
Defund the GLC.
DLC. Defund the GLC.
Oh, great. HBO's got their pitch now.
The first story arc on HBO Max.
Yeah, the Guardians of the Man. They represent.
Sal, you got some bad news. We're gonna have to cut a few sectors out.
We have to cut back. Funding hasn't come up from the universe lately. There's less will.
Yeah, we're gonna have to tell you, Earth has been defunded. So
yeah, you're out. You're out of the family, Tom.
AABB always be closing.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Well, anyone who puts Polka Dot Man into his movie is okay in my books.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. He's a guy who knows film, who genuinely loves the books, and you got to respect that because he at least is looking to some degree at things from a comic book set of lenses. We don't have enough of that in Hollywood.
No. Who would have thought we've ever have 3 kind of Suicide Squad movies? If you count that Harley Quinn middle one too, who would have ever thought that we'd have 3 Suicide Squad movies before we would have a good Green Lantern movie?
No one.
Or a proper, like, we never got the proper Green Infinity Gauntlet with Adam either. So
well, we had a great movie. Man of Steel was awesome.
Yeah.
I have blood pressure issues today, so I'm not going to even. I'm going to go back.
I hate that movie.
Dude,
if there's a Superman movie I could ever hate, I hate that movie.
I'm not saying anything.
It's not a Superman. Don't worry about it.
I'm not getting him triggered there. I'm just triggered.
Dude,
built into a skull. It's the codex.
No, you know,
Green Lantern.
You know I'm not triggered.
No, we just gotta get Ash going and saying stuff, and then you'll be triggered.
Oh, that's
Man of Tool. Man I love Clobby. Thank you, Clobby. Man of Stool.
Why is everyone mean to me all of a sudden? I'm being nice, and they got to go after me. I just don't get it. Good Lord.
It's too bad that the DC universe is, my opinion, the greatest universe there is. Green Lantern is my favorite all-time superhero. I have statues downstairs. Before I had a Batman or a Superman statue, I had Hal Jordan Green Lantern. I own them all. Sideshow ones are a little expensive, but he is my hero. I joined the Air Force at the young age of 18 years old because of him, and for, of course, Tom Cruise in Top Gun.
He was Navy.
He would. Yeah. So, but it was the whole fighter pilot doing that in the Air Force, right? And that was one of those things growing up, reading those comic books. You had and then I became an RCMP officer, a Mountie. Shortly, I left the military and became an RCMP officer because I wanted to do the law enforcement thing. And he was kind of both to me. He was Air Force and he was law enforcement, and kind of molded that against, the rest of my life. I grew up in a very ordered home. So that's why I thought that would be the natural progression of my career. So he's always been that pinnacle of superheroes for me. He's a normal guy. He's got a big ego. He's got an amazingly strong will. And even without the ring, he'll hold his own. And with the ring, it's, the greatest weapon in the universe. So I just think he's a great character, and the whole mythos that surrounds him, in my opinion, is the greatest mythos there is in comics because it spans galaxies. It spans the universe, and he's gone to to death itself and beaten Necron, and he's traveled throughout the universe, and he's gone up against Mongol. He's gone up against Darkseid. He's gone up against the Anti-Monitor and Sinestro and that whole core, and he's come out the other side as the greatest of all time. And that's why I love the Green Lantern Corps mythos. It's just, there's so many great stories, Golden, Silver, and Bronze Age.
Well, if you think about it,
that was lovely.
Yeah,
thank you.
Right? It was beautiful.
Lovely.
It was. Nicely done, man. Yeah.
If you think about this, Clark and Hal have both gone up against the same characters, and they've won. Think about that one, like what you just said. Yeah. So.
The Green Lantern Corps is almost like its own DC Comics.
Yeah.
So there's DC Comics and there's Green Lantern Corps comics because it's such a wide. It's a universe in itself. Oh! Is that Ryan Reynolds? That is.
Here's
Show
for you.
us.
Ash, do you see that?
Can I have that?
Ash would like that. Send that to Ash.
I'm going to
love that.
You have to be careful. You're gonna have to wrap that in.
Out.
You're gonna have to wrap that in plastic for him, though. Yeah.
Oh, shut up, Jack.
Oh shit! Someone asked a question earlier in the chat because they said, I forgot who it was. Now it's been a while. I said, "What do you guys think of the Marvel Green Lantern, basically Nova?" Someone asked that, and because it is. Marv Wolfman basically just said, "What the hell? Let's do Green Lantern." I love Nova in this. I love the original Richard Rider comic Nova. Anybody even remember that anymore? I know they brought it back later, but
I haven't read it in a while. But I like it. I dig it. But I mean, I'm of course I'm gonna stick by my guy Hal. But I like it. It's a worth a read run. That's where I'm at.
Nova's not as good as Hal at Green Lantern.
No. The Nova thing is a total. I mean, let's be honest. It's a total ripoff of Green Lantern.
But that's the whole storyline that I'm surprised they dropped because there's so much potential in Nova.
The mightiest weapon in the entire multiverse. This harnesses your imagination, makes your imagination manifest through your willpower. Isn't this just a great conceit? What an awesome
great idea
thing. Yeah.
And you know why Hal's the best? His boxing gloves are the most creative use of willpower I've ever seen.
Yeah, and the
man.
jackhammer too.
Yep.
Yeah, the jackhammer.
Yeah.
I did
Like,
like how they
who-
envisioned that in the movie, though, where he had that the whole train and everything, and that was actually an interesting use of Will and very visual when they yeah.
Kyle
Yeah.
Rayner would make giant robots. He would make a Gundam for himself. Kyle Rayner.
So Eric, you must love that Superman animated series episode with Kyle Rayner in it.
Oh God, I
That
hated
was
that
cool.
one. They made him look like Hal Jordan, but they called him Kyle Rayner.
Yeah, they did make him
Why?
look like Hal Jordan. That was weird.
Then they contradicted it with the Justice League show.
Yeah. Can I say that? Can I say that?
No.
The JSA don't get enough love nowadays. I just
No,
want to
they
say
don't.
that.
You can say that.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Robert? JSA.
You know, my favorite thing when I was a kid was once a year the JSA and the JLA would team up.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
I know.
was, and I love to get the little lineup in this story. You'd get the little lineup on the side of the first page of everybody, or
Yep.
sometimes they'd be on the cover. And I loved the Golden Age heroes. I loved again another great Jeff Johns comic run was that JSA
Yes.
run.
Mm.
It was.
Really like that a lot.
Yeah.
I just think that the problem, if it's a problem, is I think those characters are more difficult to translate on screen because they're more retro than our modern characters are.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen a lot of that. Like, look, in Smallville, we saw the Justice Society. We saw obviously in the CW Flash, we saw Jay Garrick, and
We got Stargirl. on
Stargirl.
CW.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see Dr. Fate. I can't wait. I want a hot toy of Dr. Fate. I love that they're going to do that in Black Adam. I mean, I can't wait. But I just think that those characters might be a little more wacky.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's maybe they're just seen as old fashioned. But I didn't feel that way when I was reading the JSA comic that Jeff Johns was doing, and I like those characters a lot. You know, I think that those characters are great. And again, it depends how they're written and the stories that they choose to tell. Yeah, I mean,
a timepiece on it.
Yeah, something like that. It could be really interesting. I mean, I used to love the team ups. I would love to see a movie where like a Snyderverse film where the Justice League teams up with the Justice Society. I mean, come on.
Well, let's
me.
look at the lineup, right? There's some of those you can do. You can do Hourman, Dr. Midnight, but Hawkman and Hawkgirl, you could do those. Dr. Fate. Oh, by the way, I pre-ordered the Mezco Toys Dr. Fate. He's one of my favorites from the JSA. He is my favorite. Spectre. How are you going to do the Spectre? That would be hard to translate. Jim Corrigan, maybe, but the Spectre is tough.
Yeah, but a great, you know, again, and I love Alan Scott's uniform.
Yeah.
You know, like I look at Clobberin's avatar and I'm like, man, Alex Ross really could capture the essence of Alan Scott as Green Lantern.
Alex Ross.
Well, that Alex Ross poster of all the JSA, old and new, that is one of my favorite posters.
That is a great poster.
No, it's great.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite posters. I have that.
Gents, I have to go. I have to do some work before I do my own stream. I apologize, but this was geekiness for my soul, and I needed it. I feel like I just had a great comfort food meal of geekdom.
Hopefully, we leave you in a food coma equivalent.
I cannot thank you enough or tell you how honored I am to have you here. Been a big fan of yours for many years. Not just
thank you.
Way before there was anything like streaming. You know, you're free enterprise and such, of course, but also seeing you in all those streams, watching your channel and everything like that. Again, I thank you once again for what you did for my great buddy, the late great Mark C. His family really appreciated you on that.
I'm using it every day now. I've taken it. I put it in front of my show when I say that I'm an evangelist of the imagination. I use that picture that he drew.
Oh, great. I love it. I really appreciate that. And I cannot thank you enough for coming out here and geeking out with us today. And I would hope we get a chance to do it again sometime, sir.
Oh, man, this is great. I love it. Are you kidding? I love this.
I'm gone. Never coming back. I hate you.
Robert became kind of a normal member of our community on our channels now.
You are an honorary member of the Global Geek Gang. I made this picture here.
I love it.
I hope you don't mind being Ganthet.
No, it's funny. I love it.
fitting.
It's a friend of mine has said once. My friend Steve Melching, who's an animation writer, he said because I read and look at and he made me a Watu. He made me the Watcher. So if you're making me Gambit on one side, I'm happy to be that, and I can be a Guardian on one side. I'll be a Watcher on the other. You know, when people go, well, Rob, you're not a superhero. You're an elder or something. I'm like, I'll take it. I'm there for that.
You're always a superhero to me, sir.
Someone's got to draw a combination of the Watcher and Gambit and make me an amalgam, not from the Amalgam comics, but an amalgamation. Maybe that's
Wouldn't that be a great story? The Watcher and Ganthet have coffee.
or they're the same person and they exist in both universes. They just don't tell anyone.
Yeah, that's even better.
They did. Yeah. Galactus and Darkseid met, so you never know.
Yeah, I know. It's true. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you, sir.
We'll geek out again.
You're always welcome on here, Robert.
Fantastic. So. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Take care of yourself, R&B.
Great Robert Meyer Burnett, everyone. Woo! Yes.
Well, I'm exhausted.
I will one day get him to undoubtedly love the Green Lantern film. It will happen. I will make sure.
That is a great conversation, man. Like I said, I could just put my feet up and listen to her all day.
Oh, he's amazing. And Ash, just for you, I'm going to go out and buy the extended cut because I know I'm going to find it at a $5.
Hey,
$5 bin. Where'd you find that?
on Amazon. $9 on Amazon.
9? Did you say 9? Oh, I could.
Nine.
You think I could talk him down a little bit? That's a little high, man.
Yeah, it's very good.
That's,
Yeah,
it's a little high. I was trying, maybe it's worth about $2 or $3, maybe $4 on the Blu-ray with extended cut.
I gotta say, it didn't suck. I liked it a lot more the second time, and after 10 years,
I would look. With all the water under the bridge and all the horrible crap out there, I would probably won't dislike it as much as I did before. I trust it. I trust it. Let me tell you, because one, it was Esh's gateway drug to GL, and two, Blake Lively and Taika Waititi are amazing in it. My favorite scenes are the three of them being friends. They had such rapport, and Blake Lively is so beautiful. She's got such star quality. The camera loves her. Wait, Taika Waititi is in that?
Yeah, he plays Tom
He actually doesn't act it too. That's the part that's shocking.
He's good.
I forgot he was in that thing.
Me too. Yeah.
One awesome thing was this is the film that where Ryan first met Blake, and it was after this film they got together, and now they're one of the biggest power couples in Hollywood.
Oh, I
loves
Scarlett Johansson.
It was this film that started it all for them.
Yeah.
And I will shout out to both of them because they have been doing amazing amount of charity work for all those people, all those companies out there for special needs and stuff for charity that has been really suffering because of COVID, and they've been donating $1 million here, $2 million there, and really putting it back into the community for the people who really truly need it. So shout out to both of them for doing that out of the kindness of your heart. I'd expect that from Ryan, being a good Canadian boy, but Blake has been right there too, and so both sides of the border. It's just outstanding work that they're doing. So thank you to them, even though they'll probably never hear this. But Ryan comes from a good family. His brother's Mountie. So shout out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we talked a bit of Green Lantern, but we went all over the place, but that's okay. That's what that was because we've spent a great deal of time on him last week, but just to get a chance to hang out with Rob Burnett, that was fantastic.
Thank you, Clobby. Thank you so much. That was like, wow.
Thank Jed made it happen. Jed Nash, those the guys made it happen.
The best conversations about comics are organic, though. You just let it go, and it just meanders where it needs to.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I'm kind of like the guy that goes out there and tries to get people in. So
yeah, I do. He's got dirt. He knows where the bodies are buried. He gets.
I do it for our channel, and I do it for Mike's channel now. So.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
This is kind of like Geeks and Gamers Nerdrotic. Instead, it's just a pop culture, archivist and Clobberin time. So
But you know what's good about your channel, Jed, and yours,
Yeah.
Clobby, and Flava Flavs too, and everybody here really. But I think we're not talking too deep into the politics and the darkness that's going out in the world. We're trying to bring Green Lantern's light into this world, and we're having some fun. We're talking about comic books. We're talking about movies, geek culture, everything. That's what's so fun about your channels, and that's going to bring all the people to the yard here, right? It's just fun, and that's what people want to listen to, a good conversation about some great characters or some great movies, and that's what it's all about. And so thank you to all of you for being here, and thank you to Jed and Clobby for setting this up, and Esh and Retro, Flava Flavs, Eric, Ray. This is just great times, man.
Mm-hmm. I've just had so much fun. I'm going to go around the horn now, and we're going to say some goodbyes. I'm going to start with, of course, our great friend Raymond, Raymond is there, and I put a link, by the way, in the chat. He is, of course, an author. Raymond, final closing words, and talk a little bit about your book. If you're still there. Raymond.
If he's there.
I guess everyone doesn't love him. He left.
I'm here. Thank you.
Hey, go for it.
Thank you.
I thought we lost somebody.
And sequel's coming out soon as I can get my ace reader to read it.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here, man.
Hopefully sometime in May, hopefully middle of the month or May, we'll get it out.
All right, dude. Well, we appreciate you, man. Always thanks for hanging out. Sorry about the link thing. I sent you the wrong link by mistake, and I kept saying maybe Raymond's not coming. And then you had to. I'm glad you told me. It was just I had two different links going in three different directions. A certain thing that went on. A certain thing that went on before the show really took me off my game, and my StreamYard was
gotcha.
Terrible. So
I got it. Thank you. Thank you for
sorry
having me
about
on.
that, buddy. Oh, dude, appreciate it. Now we have, of course, the great. A great new friend who was here last week, and he's here this week, of course, Eric O'Sullivan, buddy.
Hello.
Hi. Words.
How are you doing? I'm Eric O'Sullivan. I'm part of the chat. I've got no channel to pimp, really, unless you want to learn how to make a great pizza at home, or some vegan-style tomato sauce, or some mozzarella ribs. I make the best ribs in the world. I got a video that will teach you how to make ribs.
Give me them.
You have to make them the day ahead, but it's worth it. And
you should do a cooking channel that's surrounded by nerd stuff and call it the Nerd Chef.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to volunteer myself to be Mr. November for the 2022 Men of the Phantom Menace wall calendar. I will do that. We'll do it for charity. I think it's a good idea.
You have to have Pikachu in your picture with you. You have to have Pikachu there.
And shout out to Drunk 3PO, of course. I want to see what my fee is. And that's about it. In brightest day and blackest night, I'm very appreciative and gratitude for having me on. I'm loving this. Thank you so much.
Well, sir, you are an honorary member of the Global Geek Gang, and there's an open invite to you whenever you can make it, brother.
Let me know where to be and how to dress.
Well, you got it, man.
Yeah, and, you're always welcome, Eric.
Our great buddy Nick, man, also a new member of the Global Geek Gang. Yo, buddy. Tell us what you got going on, my friend. We always appreciate you hanging with us, man.
Hey, Nick, are we gonna have the show tonight, or is it canceled?
Tomorrow night?
Oh yeah, is it gonna be tomorrow night?
We're not, because it's gonna be it's not gonna happen, but we will be back to business as usual next Friday. But so anyways, I got a flurry of things coming. I've been overdue to do some food videos for a bit. So I did a KFC one. I got a pizza one coming on the way. I also got a podcast style interview with my buddy Joe from Defenders of the Faith in a few hours at 6. And we're going to talk lots of old school metal. So if there's any metalheads in the chat, we're gonna have an awesome, badass metal conversation. And of course, we're going to be covering more Invincible as well, 32 Flavors of Entertainment. And, of course, I hit 310, so that's fun. And I'm hoping to just grow the channel even more with all you wonderful fellas. And Clobberin Times, thank you, as always, for having me on. This never gets old. I mean, this is the gift that keeps on giving, being on these panels with all of you guys. So, yeah, I look forward to doing this again on a normal Thursday. This is a blast. Thank you. I appreciate you all.
Dude,
Uh-huh.
open invite.
Awesome.
Yeah, open invite whenever you can make it, brother. We want you here, man. So thank you so much for hanging out with us, man. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Sorry, this thing, my StreamYards is really going slow on me, so I apologize, everyone. Let's see. Let's talk to our friend because we didn't get to talk to him much tonight. Retro, anything to say on heading out, man?
Oh, guys, great just to be here, just taking a back seat for the change, and it's just brilliant just listening to everyone. You just, great. You learn a lot. You get to hear what your thoughts are. Brilliant. And I'll just be hanging about on Jed's channel. That's where you'll catch me talking all things pop culture and retro TV films and movies. So thanks again, Clobby, and thanks to all the guys. Brilliant work. Fantastic.
Thank you so much, my friend. We appreciate you. And I'm always so honored to have this gentleman here, the great Lord Thoth. Buddy, if you have any final closing remarks there, anything I know you're not doing a channel yet, but you need to be, of course. We all know you
right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the introduction. It's always an honor to be here, Clobby, and with Jed and Ash and Retro and all you fine gentlemen, and Flava Flavs too does a great show on Friday nights for those comic geeks out there after FNT. If you're feeling like you want to come down from the chaos of Friday Night Tights, and there's Flava Flavs talking about comics with some of the boys from this channel or this panel here as well. There's also Foul Ball Productions who has one too on Friday too. So once you're finished with Flava Flavs, come on over to Foul Ball Productions and we usually have a few drinks and talk all kinds of fun stuff. So this was amazing. Thank you for letting me be a part of this discussion about Green Lantern, the history, the traditions, the lore, the movies, the comics, the animated show, everything. And thank you very much to the chat. We really appreciate you. It's great to see you participating in it too. And thank you very, very much for joining us on this journey. And I think that who said the oath there a few minutes ago? I think it was
Eric.
Brightest Day. Brightest Day. Well, Eric probably too. I saw Brightest Day did it recently there too. So yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you, bro. Open invite, man. Whenever you can make it. I know you're a busy man, but when you can make it, we want you here, brother. So you name it, man.
Thanks. I'll do my best.
Our dear friend Ash. Ash, buddy, as always, I appreciate you, man. What you got going on?
Thank you. Well, first, I had a bunch of stuff planned for today, but everything went all different. And it was video game centric too. It's all right. We can.
You should have told me. I didn't know that.
Well, I didn't want to ruin the flow of the stream. It was going really well, and we're having a great time. So it's all right. We can touch on it next week. But
next week's gonna be wide open.
Do I smell a Green Lantern Part 3? Anyone?
No, we could do anything. It'll be wide open. So we're gonna do other topics in the future. But yes, you can feel free to go for it next week. I'm sorry about that, brother.
No, it's all right. No worries. It was a great stream anyway. It's great having RMB on, as always. He's great to talk to, and such a wealth and depth of information just in his brain to just tap into. And yeah, so if you want to catch me, I've got my own personal channel and a Twitch channel at Ash Singh, and I'm also on the team of Pop Culture Archivists with Jed and Retro, and we do a stream on Saturdays or Sundays depending on the scheduling. We'll have like a bunch of guests and stuff on, and we just hit 100 subs on that channel, so we're all we'll have a celebration stream coming in a few weeks. But yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. We got Ed. Oh, we got Ed. I was about to put that in there. There's Ash's channel, but also Chris Persia has both the Pop Culture Archivist channel there. Well, thank you, Ash, dude. We always appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you,
man. Just have so much fun hanging with you, man. And of course, my partner in crime, wherever he is, I lost him out. I think Jed's gone. I can't find him anywhere. Where are you, man?
I'm here.
You're awful hard on him, Clobby.
I don't, dude, he's done this for years, so I'm used to it.
When in doubt, blame Jed.
Yeah. Well, I guess you only pick on the ones you love.
In that case, I knew it, Ted. I want to be nice to you now. Go for it, man.
I will say this. I'm now on a regular on Next channel on Friday and then some other days. So you'll see me a lot on Next channel now. You'll see me after I don't know. Would anybody here be interested in a stream this weekend? Because I'm thinking about putting it off because it's Easter. So, and I didn't think a lot of people want to spend time with their family and stuff. So
I'd be getting another Jake D achievement if I did something this weekend. The divorce achievement.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I didn't know if I should do it. If we should do it this weekend because it is Easter. So, but I do know some people are still stuck in their houses and stuff and under quarantine. So I'm like, I'm torn. I don't know what to do to do it, you know. So, so
if you got the time, do it. Go for it.
Yeah. Man. So, we'll think about this. It might be of it, but and I probably after this, me and let me see.
Is that a new guy?
Me and Cockney. Me and Cockney will probably be doing 2 Blokes on a Telly after this broadcast. So after this live stream, because that's our new thing over there on his thing. He has me over there, and I was being sarcastic yesterday, and he's like, "Oh, that's a good title." So like, come join us over there afterwards on Cockney's channel. We'll be bullshitting over there. So it's relaxed like over here is, but you know it's you know sort of controlled chaos and stuff. But yeah, and I do want to thank everybody that's subscribed and everybody that's subbed and everybody that's gave us support for our channel. Like Ash said, we hit 100 subscribers and we couldn't have done this without everybody in chat, everybody that subscribe, and everybody on Twitter and everything else. And so just be there's big things coming. And like Ash said, in about a couple of weeks, we're gonna have our big 100 subscriber stream and celebration, and it's gonna be big. So
all right, well,
thank you everybody.
Big applause for Jed for getting R&B here. It was all his doing, and I guess, and we love you for that, bro. We appreciate it. It was fantastic, man. And the congrats to you and Ash on hitting 100, and onward and upward from there, my friends. Just a little show note, of course. Saturday night, the wonderful Raquel Briggs and I reviewing 4 more episodes of Star Trek: The Original Series, Season 2. This show is we have so much fun doing this show. It's fantastic.
What are the episodes on deck this week, Clobby?
By Any Other Name, Return to Tomorrow, Patterns of Force, and The Ultimate Computer. And we are sadly getting toward the ends of season 2, and I'm getting sad. Season 3 is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a lot of fun actually tearing into those episodes.
He's not going to have fun doing season 3. He's just going to be so depressed.
I'm going to make it fun. Don't worry. But I'll be brutal.
He is.
In sort of I was looking for some kind of topic to do on my Monday Night Mark C comic show, and a movie that recently came out, no spoilering, of course, yet, but Godzilla vs. Kong, about a superhero battle of sorts. It'll be greatest superhero battles from comics. Yeah, because I couldn't think of anything else, and see what happens. So because there have been some great ones.
Have you already done the biggest deaths in comics?
No, well, look, it'll happen. I mean,
Superman would be at the top,
Yeah,
but
but that is a good one. Thank you for that one. I'll add that to the topic list because in a couple of weeks after Invincible, all of it drops. A good buddy of mine will be reviewing the whole thing. Only 8 episodes, and doing that. And of course, again, thanks to the wonderful Bionic Belly Button for joining me last night. She was fantastic, and that was great.
Yeah, that was awesome last night.
Yeah, she's a true sweetheart.
Yeah.
Love her. And everyone, there's the intro screwed up on me going leading out, so there's no point in playing it here. I just want to say thank you all. Look at that. Long live the Legion, buddy.
Long live the Legion. Oh, and shout out
yeah.
to Purple Valkyrie because you guys did the supervillain stream. That was awesome. I was working out listening to that. That was great.
Oh, thank
Shout
you.
out to Purple.
Again, thank you for mentioning that. I forgot that Purple. Sorry about that. I love you, Purple. You're so wonderful. I mean, and I appreciate all the correspondence and you being on the show with me. You are the best. I mean, I am not worthy of Purple. In fact, guys, that's 3 nights in a row that I had beautiful women on my show.
I'm good luck for him
right here.
I'm good luck for him.
And now I'm stuck with you. Now I'm stuck with you mugs, but I had 3 nights in a row. So they were fantastic. They were magnificent. Love you, Purple.
It must be my beak. It must be my beak, eh? That's what it is. My beak is good.
Yeah, I think that's it. We like that beak.
Yeah, Purple, we love you.
Love all you in the chat there. Thank you all so much.
We love Janice too, and everybody else that comes on the channel.
What a great crowd we had here today. You're all fantastic. Appreciate you so much. And that is it. And we're running. You take care, and all of you have a great day and